Thank you guys all for joining today. Today is one of the first learning events that was marketed through our Collaboration Hub. So thank you all for navigating into the Collaboration Hub and joining with us today. Very excited to see some familiar faces from the Training and Professional Development Statewide Work Group Initiative. I hope to get to know everyone a little bit more as we continue on with these calls over the next few months. Just today, we are going to be beginning with an overview of the Transformation Funds Initiative. Before we get started and I hand it right over to Heather, we're going to do a very quick review of the Rhode Island Direct Service Professional Statewide Workforce Initiative. When I was practicing my script earlier, I was calling this the RESWE because otherwise it's a mouthful. Then just a quick reminder of the Collaboration Hub and a very brief orientation, and then get you guys over to the meat of today's presentation talking about that Transformation Fund Initiative. So just a reminder of why we're all here, both individuals, providers, agencies, the state, some of the state's key stakeholders in terms of support across Rhode Island is that Rhode Island really wants to and is working towards having a sustainable and comprehensive, diverse workforce, DSP workforce, where the individuals who are the direct service professionals have the knowledge and skills to provide high quality services and supports to individuals with developmental disabilities. As many of you who might have been joining those in-person summits that we had in it was November and in January, you know that this vision is being revised a little bit with the intent to continue to enhance and refine with that goal of really supporting individuals with developmental disabilities better within the state. Part of the RESWE, if you will, the statewide initiative is to support the efforts that the state is required to do through the consent decree. We will hear about that with the Transformation Fund, and then just wanted to orient everybody to who we are. So you've been hearing about Sage Squirrel and Altarum a little bit. We are the team that is supporting the enhancement of the workforce directly with 5 different areas: standards and credentialing, which is one of the work groups that some people are involved in, the training and professional development one, which I am going to say might just be the best one because that's the one I get to be on with Mary Madden and others on this call. There's also one on the Institutes for Higher Education. And then the final one is recruitment and retention. And the goal from all of those work groups is to pull together and really bring together and identify the resources necessary within Rhode Island and that are within Rhode Island to better support the provider community, both agency-based and for those self-directing and or supporting those who self-direct. So a lot of work, been doing a lot of foundation building and engagement in the past the first few months of the contract, and really excited about moving forward with a lot of these trainings. Just want to note that there is the Collaboration Hub that is available. The purpose of the hub is to provide a space for you guys to partner and work together. It is not, even though it's on a website, we're saying it is not a website. It's really an online platform for collaboration with one another. And so that hope that you guys, if you have not already taken a look at it, have gone in and checked it out. I am pulling it up and I want to just do a very, very brief orientation. If you have not had access to this, please do reach out. You can let us know in the chat feature right now and we can get you included in this, or you can reach out afterwards. But there's some really great information, as I hope that you guys have been looking at with that Stay Informed. We're putting in here some announcements, asking and putting in some of the workforce outcomes due to the consent decree and the court order, talking about and have already put some upcoming events in here. I do want to note that within this upcoming events, the Applied Self-Direction Group, it's a national group, they have some upcoming free webinars that are based out of their conference. And so we went ahead and included those here. So if you have any particular interest in self-direction through Applied Self-Direction conferences, go ahead and look at them. There's some really fun ones that I intend to geek out on, but we've put them on here for your guys' ease as well. And you can see there's several spread across the month of March, and again are free to the public to support families and individuals. So there's also materials from past events. So after today's event, you will be able to hear the recording, see the PowerPoints, and there's a one-pager that we will be posting as well, but all past events will be on that as well. And then we'll continue to build out some of these other ones. We are going to start building out more of the resources. As you can see, there are some great resources already. and those will continue to be expanded upon. So again, if you need anything, any access to this hub, please do let us know now in the chat, or you can reach out. I did put in our team member's name here who can help get you guys connected if not. But upcoming meetings will be through this website and marketed through that website as well. So with that, I'm going to stop talking so you guys can get to the fun stuff. Thank you all for putting in chat what you guys are hoping to hear about and where you are from. I will review that as Heather's going through the slides, just so that we can make sure that we are able to get what we need to for you guys and those answers you need. I'm going to pass this over to Heather. Heather works at the Rhode Island BHDDH in the Division of Disability, and you are the Senior Director.
Assistant Director.
Assistant Director.
Good.
Assistant Director. I had
Good
almost
going
all
off
of
the
it.
cuff.
Heather, I'm going to go on mute and let you do your magic.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. I hope that this presentation provides an overview on the transformation funds, both phases 1 and 2, and kind of gives you more of a global overview of what's been going on. I know that some of you may be familiar with this material, or at least different parts of it. So again, I'm hoping that this kind of pulls it all together for everyone, and you do walk away with some valid information. This came out of the consent decree. There was a court-ordered action plan on October 19th of 2021. There were specific items that the state needed to fund to help build capacity in the adult service system. So the transformation fund was one. There's a self-direct fund, the statewide workforce initiative, where there wasn't a specific dollar amount given, but still an action item that we needed to work on. And then also a technology fund. So the fund itself, the transformation fund, I'm not going to read through all of this stuff, but you'll have it in the PowerPoint if people want to go look at it. It basically was created to not replace this $12 million was put in there. And let me say, $10 million is going to the transformation fund for purposes of these activities, phase 1 and 2. There's also an additional $2 million that was to be utilized just for self-direction. But again, for the purposes of this presentation, I'll just be talking about transformation phases 1 and 2. So for transformation phase 1 and 2, there was $10 million put into the system, not to replace existing funding, but to be used solely for creating new integrated day activities and supported employment services as defined in the consent decree. And so when we had this new money, we really needed to think about how would we disperse this funding to providers? How would we determine how much they would get? How would providers know what they could request to use this funding on? And I also just wanted to state, because if people do go and look more deeply at what's in this slide, there really were some aggressive timelines here too that needed to be adjusted. So just so people know, some of those timelines were adjusted to provide the state time to get some of this stuff moving, and also for the providers as well, because it was aggressive timelines for them to be able to get this funding and get all of these activities in place that they had chosen to do with this money. Phase 1, the division was asked with this funding to assist. The division was tasked with dispersing funds for assisting providers with recruitment and retention, and quickly to provide some relief for providers, because coming out of COVID, everybody, it was even more of a staffing crisis, as everyone knows. And so we really wanted to provide some quick relief. So the applications were distributed on December 3rd of 2021. The application deadline was December 17th. So it was only a 2-week period. But then individuals or the DDOs who requested additional time were giving an additional week. Award letters were distributed on December 31st in 2021, and then the funding was dispersed on February 18th of 2022. And just to let people know, the funding through phase 1 was American Rescue Plan Act funding. So it didn't come out of our all funds state budget. It came out of that money that the state was provided. So proposals. Only DDOs were able to apply for this first round of funding. Technical support from the Sherlock Center was provided to DDOs. That was provided by either through phone calls, through in-person meetings, through reviewing proposals for some of the DDOs who wanted to submit, and again, just providing whatever technical assistance they could with these proposals prior to the providers submitting them. There was Q&A meetings with providers. The state had that. There was one before they were due, just to provide some guidance on how people could use these funds and what the parameters were around them. Ultimately, there were 29 DDOs who submitted proposals, and awards were granted to 29 DDOs. So the activities and the focus. In phase one, the DDOs focused on activities to stimulate, strengthen, and increase their direct support workforce, such as offering staff training, providing retention, stipends, creating opportunities to earn credentials, and utilizing new recruitment strategies. Training. This was where we saw the most emphasis in the first phase one, primarily focused on advancing direct service professionals' understanding of self-determination, community mapping, technology, person-centered practices, as well as engaging individuals and families in the transformation process. So we did see some providers in their proposals directly use language around wanting to engage families in this process, which is a very important piece because, again, we're making all these changes and trying to provide supports that are meaningful to individuals. So we really need to get their feedback. And so it was nice to see that built into some proposals. And one innovative practice proposed was to use funds for workshops on implicit bias and inclusive leadership. Retention stipends. So stipends range from $500 to $1,000. Stipends were used in a variety of ways, including referral bonuses, tuition assistance, and longevity bonuses for both supervisors and direct support professionals. Earn and learn models were found in many applications, which combines the participation in important professional development opportunities with a stipend. And so giving back and encouraging growth in employees shows investment in these employees. And that's really what we want to show, and wanted to help provide funding for agencies to be able to do that. Advancing credentials. So again, providing skills, tools, building blocks. The NASDAQ eBadge Academy was the most widely identified credentialing system proposed to be used to train over 150 frontline and leadership personnel. The ACRE, the Association of Community Rehabilitation Educators, approved training was the second most requested activity proposed to support at least 50 staff. And the Relias training and certification in assistive technology was also identified as a priority. And so just to let you know, for those who may not know, but the eBadge Academy, Relias training options that can be done online, they're online platforms. So it does make it a little easier for people to have access for those trainings. And so it's important to be thinking about, when we're thinking about this work, how we're providing opportunities for staff. Retention activities. Many programs propose to use funds for sign-on bonuses for positions that include leadership, direct support workers, and nurses. New positions proposed including using funds to hire a recruitment specialist, HR coordinator, job developer, and community trainer. Apprenticeships were another innovative practice proposed to providers to create pipelines focused on engaging new people into the field. I also want to say a very important part of this work is keeping staff once you hire them. So looking at these ways of retaining staff once they have been hired is very important as well. So data and the areas of focus. So recruitment and retention efforts were more than a third of the focus of this initial work. Other areas like trainings, which can assist in retention rates, make up another third of the work. Coupled with those two, it's about 60% of the activities that were done, and potentially more because some things fall into different categories, but have similar outcomes or geared at still recruitment and retention efforts. A lot of this funding was used for very good purposes. And we did see in our status update, we asked providers to provide an update from the February 22 through September of 22, where they were at with these proposals. And so 19% of the funds had been spent, 51 activities have been completed, and there were actually a total of 162 activities. So about a third of the activities completed in total, and 46 newly hired staff. That's some good progress. But again, I want to point out that this is part of the reasons why some of those timelines I mentioned earlier needed to be adjusted, because again, there's so much going on in our system right now, so many different moving parts. And we have this money, we want it to be used in the best way possible and want providers to be able to be thoughtful in how they're managing these activities. And so we have the best outcomes. So transformation phase 2, the additional funding here was to assist in changing the service delivery system by adding in new and innovative service options. Applications were distributed on February 23rd of 2022. The application submission deadline was May 1st of 2022. The award letters were distributed on June 30th, 2022, and funding was dispersed to all Rhode Island Medicaid providers on August 16th of 2022. And I made that distinction in that last bullet because there were some entities who weren't yet Medicaid providers Rhode Island Medicaid providers, when we made that initial disbursement of funding. So the proposals, these proposals were, or this pot of funding was a little different, as it was open to any entity willing to become a Rhode Island Medicaid provider. So as I said, the previous one was just for the licensed DDOs, the DDOs that were already on file and licensed. This was open to anyone who wanted to become a Rhode Island Medicaid provider and ultimately a licensed DDO. Technical support, again, from the Sherlock Center was made available, and Q&A meetings with providers. I don't know, it lost the with providers there, I see, but that was Q&A meetings with providers as well. There were 33 entities who submitted proposals, and awards were granted to those 33 entities. So the intent was to, again, increase the availability of innovative service models and support for individuals with IDD. The first one, we just let people know that, again, you needed to become a Rhode Island Medicaid provider. And then the following 5 areas needed to be demonstrated by any entity applying for this funding. And we had to put this guidance out after we put out the application, just to let people know kind of what we were looking for. So expertise in a person-centered approach, facilitating community integration, experience in the use of innovative and emerging practices, experience in advancement of community inclusion, and experience in the advancement of integrated employment practices. We were really looking to see that from the people who submitted proposals, just so that we know they are focusing on doing some of this work. They do have some level of expertise that will be seen throughout the work that they do, because we're looking to have outcomes, again, for the individuals in our service system. So we felt that was important. So areas of focus under transformation to employment services. Many interesting ideas were proposed to increase the availability of employment support services, such as purchasing memberships to the Chamber of Commerce, holding focus groups, and other types of different business engagement, hiring employment staff to build out capacity, and providing resources and education about employment were some other key areas. One provider is working with the national expansion of employment opportunities network. And I also just wanted to list that there are some other innovative ideas that are going on too, but actually I'll talk more about them in the next slide. So the staff training, developing capacity, skills, and knowledge was a continuing priority amongst many providers. Training with a focus on employment, community, navigation and mapping, person-driven practice, use of technology, and one provider was really looking to do training on ASL, which I thought was great. There were many projects that involved coaching and mentoring. There were also more specific and specialized trainings and engagement with the national organizations like the Institute for Community Inclusion. And one of the kind of mentoring and training, or not mentoring and training, mentoring and coaching innovative practices that is going on through this transformation phase 2 funding is with one of the entities who actually signed on as a new DDO, and really working with providers who have gone through the customized employment training and bringing people together to further that work, further their skill set, and also collaborate to find out about new job opportunities. They work for different providers, but again, it's just bringing them together to talk about what they're doing, to sharpen their skill set, to ask questions in, this open forum with other people who are doing the same work for them. And I think it's great. It's really work that we need to see done to scale with some of this stuff, so that we're all always engaging with each other and sharing best practices, sharing information that we have, and especially with employment, sharing job opportunities. Because if you don't have anyone who is on your team who is you're looking for employment supports, but it's not a match for them, there's so many other people out there looking and searching for. He's very, very excited about that work being done. Technology. So there was a focus on providing technology to staff to support the work that needs to be done while in the community. Several proposals included the use of iPads for staff and the individuals they support. And some technology was going to assist job coaches in doing their work. And one request was for smart technology. The request for job coaches to have technology and the smart home technology really lets us know at the state level that providers are thinking in a forward direction. Using technology to support individuals is beneficial to all. At this point, we try to weave technology more and more into our lives every day. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes not so good. But I think for these purposes, it can assist with some of the staffing shortages, and it can assist individuals to manage their own lives in a more independent way. Transition age youth. So here, there was a focus for a few agencies. I think it's important to mention that. And it's really just around engagement with the youth in transition around some of the other activities that we've talked about, really about community mapping, navigation, things like that. So data in the areas of focus here with Transformation 2. Just over a third of the projects are engaged in work that will expand employment services, which is wonderful. There are newly created positions that will support community engagement in more meaningful ways. And weaved throughout so many of the projects is just the theme of inclusion, which is really where we want to be going, seeing people involved in their communities in a meaningful way. So not just in the community, but being involved, being heard, having a voice in their community, and being active members within that community. And just to let you know here, I don't have the reporting information on Transformation 2. That will be to come. But I do want to let you know that there were 218 activities that were proposed to happen within Transformation 2 phase funding. So impact, the personal stories, these, this is the important stuff, why we do the work. So I'm going to read through this quickly and then just give you my thoughts on why I think this is so important. So this is coming from one of the agencies when we asked them about reporting. And these funds have incentivized and assisted our individuals to get involved in a variety of activities, some of which they have enjoyed in the past. One of those includes classes at a martial arts program. All these classes were offered during the day, night, or weekend. They're open to anyone regardless of ability. While all the individuals are already benefiting from what this program offers, there was one special individual who has seen tremendous growth and potential for very noticeable success. In the past year, he's endured serious struggles with communication and behavior. Staff have worked with him over the years to assist him with learning new communication skills and dealing with his frustrations, but somehow the outcome would continue to be less than ideal. Once he started at Kempo at the martial arts program, we have witnessed a significant change in his overall behavior, as well as his ability to interact with others around him. He can now express himself more eloquently. We believe there is a direct correlation to the structure, routine, and instructional directives provided at this martial arts program. This program has been the driving force for this notable improvement. It is very clear that these classes are having an enormous impact on his overall well-being, mental health, and physical condition. We also see the social impact of this inclusive program, offering an insight into more of his real personality and allowing staff to work with him to make necessary changes to improve his life. We look forward to the future in watching both he and the staff grow and learn together during this period. So again, those are the stories that are the most meaningful. That's kind of numbers data you can't capture. It's very hard when we're looking for data to show outcomes on how is this funding being used and ultimately how is it benefiting and the individuals in our system to make them have more meaningful lives And this, I thought, was the perfect story. Here's an individual who has behaviors, attends this class, and then he has somewhat of a decrease in his behaviors. And I also believe they spoke to him not having not communicating as much, but then being part of this program, he started to communicate much more too. So this is the stuff that lets us know we're moving in the right direction and we're doing the things that we should be. And I think that some of the training that staff gets too is beneficial to them because it helps them to think sometimes outside of the box at what different things can we try with the individuals that we're working with when we're feeling stuck. And when people don't have these trainings offered to them, they're not building those skill sets or getting some guidance that's going to, again, offer them some insight into what different things they can try to assist individuals and reach the outcomes that we need to. So impact on the overall service system. Through the transformation phase 2, we have been able to expand capacity. There are now 4 new licensed DDOs. This is very important because it helps expand the array of services in the system and offers individuals more choice. So next steps, monitoring will be ongoing. So reporting done quarterly, that's what we are going to be moving to, meeting with providers and reviewing data to make informed decisions. Right now, just to let you know more about the data piece, we're working with the Sherlock Center on a survey that will be sent out to providers because we think that this might be easier for them to just be able to input data. And so we're going to be sending out surveys to providers for Transformation 2 funds from the beginning until whatever date it is. You know, it won't be on that quarterly mark just because we're past that at this point. But we will be sending that out soon to them. And then once we get back that data, we'll be sending out reporting on Transformation 1 so that we can start doing that on a quarterly basis and then follow up with the Transformation 2, because we really need to be getting feedback from providers on how are things going, what percentage of these activities are completed, what some of the impacts are of this funding, and then also meeting with providers. I know that our person in employment, Jay McKay, he's going to be going out meeting with the agencies who provide employment supports and really talking with them about what they're doing, and specifically with transformation funds too. What are the activities they're engaged in? How are they going? Just getting feedback and seeing if there's any ways the state can additionally support this work. We really need to know what activities people are doing and how those things are playing out realistically, because you have ideas, you put them down on paper, but then you try to implement them. They don't always work the way that you hope. So really just having discussions around that. I know that in one of the proposals, I believe it's the Rhode Island Cross Disability Coalition, part of their proposal was to bring all the providers together to, again, collaborate, discuss what's working, what's not, their barriers, are their challenges, what's going great. We just need to be doing more of that because we've infused so much money into the system. We have to know what's working so that we advocate to keep funding and keep moving these things along. And I think that's all that I have for this presentation now. So I guess we'll just open it up to questions people might have, and hopefully I'll have the answers. If not, I will try to get them and get back to you.
Well, hi, this is Chrissy. Thank you. Thank you for helping us understand better phase 1 and phase 2 of where the money was directed and what the state provided funding for in which to focus. I think from like the sage squirrel / health harm perspective, I'm sitting here taking notes of like, ooh, there's a great topic for us to be talking about further. Ooh, that's another topic. So just listening and hearing some of that stuff has definitely excited me to want to go in and dig more. So we did have one question in the chat, and I'll open it up to everybody in a moment, but one person in the chat who wanted to know a little bit more about what other providers were doing in hopes of potential collaboration. It sounds like at this point, all the funding has been dispersed, and it sounds like from the data at this point that you have, a lot of the activities have started and are in process. Do you have any guidance for those who might want to be collaborating or wanting to find ways to better support and how they can get connected?
So I'm actually the person that put that in the chat.
Okay.
And what I was specifically looking for is, for example, one of the things that you brought up, Heather, was the eBadge Academy. So it would be nice, like if we knew what each other was focused on, so that maybe if there's other providers that are, having some difficulties or successes, we can at least work together and collaborate on those types of things. And there's other areas as well. That's just one example. So if we kind of knew what each other was doing, I think helpful in terms of we could collaborate more and share more resources and information.
So I think that is a great point. I actually was just looking for Sue Babin, and now I see she has her hand raised. So
Yeah.
I will let her answer this because
Well,
she probably has some information that.
Yeah, and I know like what Sue has done a wonderful job, because so many of us are involved in that project. So that's one great example, but in addition to that, I'm thinking about the other examples as well and how we can collaborate.
So are you thinking of that it would be beneficial to have like a listing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that might be like, and what the focus is for each project. And then we can see where there's overlap, and collaborate with each other.
So just to chime in on that, Mary Ann and Heather, we had our first meeting, I think it was about a month ago, with and an invitation went out to anyone who did receive Transformation 1 or Transformation 2 funding. And I want to say about half of people who received the grants attended the meeting. So the first meeting, we kind of just went around the room and everybody spent a little bit of time talking about what their project was about, what the goals were. And then we started to talk about things that seemed to be going well and then challenges that people were having. Our next meeting is going to be around the middle of April. And at that meeting, I'm hoping that more people jump on board, because what you're bringing up, Mary Ann, is really important, that there is overlap, or there are great opportunities for people to connect together, share resources, share training, learn from people's experiences. And that's what we were hoping to do we're going to be creating a quarterly newsletter on the transformation projects, as well as some podcasts. I'm going to meeting next week to start the logistics of how we're going to do or when are we going to start with the podcasts and things like that. But if everybody doesn't come to the meeting, then we only have half of the people really, sharing their information, when I believe there's 30 something projects altogether, correct, Heather? And I think we had 20 maybe that were at our meeting.
When was that first meeting, Sue?
I want to say February. Somebody from your agency did go. I can't remember if it was you, or I want to say it was the first week of February. I believe it was February 1st.
Okay. I think all right. Was that, but that was different than the one with Doug Crandall, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Yeah, this was with providers that have received grants, with either the lead person on the grant or someone representing the executive director.
We really wanted to push that. I guess at the state can try to follow up as well with providers who received the Transformation 2 phase funding, because the state really wanted to and did encourage. I believe there was something sent out to all the providers who did receive funding from phase 2 attend those meetings, because it does provide a really great platform for people to discuss what's going on. And it kind of takes it somewhat out of the hands of the state, because at times when we do things, I think people just see it as oversight and not necessarily as like how we would want it to be, is like collaborative efforts for people to just freely talk back and forth about what's going on. And again, really what's working, what's not, and how people can work together, because it is important, especially because we're trying to make certain shifts and change so much, and with limited capacity in certain areas too. It's helpful to just have the support of other providers who are out there doing things well, or again having challenges with things, so that they can get answers, or they can just be frank with people and say, tried this and it didn't work because of this, so you don't have to go down that same road.
And I think just one more point about what we have in our grant is, as we try to identify what the theme areas are in terms of challenges, or in terms of, wow, this is really great and it's working. With respect to the challenges, we put a little bit of money in our project to bring in some individuals as outside speakers to address those challenges. Maybe people in other states that might have more experience than us, or somebody that can assist in brainstorming and trying to come up with some potential solutions. So that's the other piece of it. And I'm hoping to get to that when we have our meeting in April.
But your point, I will say, Mary Ann, about asking about all the different activities, we will look into trying to get something out listing that. I can't give you an exact time frame, but we will look to doing that because that might be important. But the other thing to know is, I guess I'd have to think about how we do that, because some providers in doing this work, I will say, I know people have updated their proposals. They've decided not to do certain things. So things are always evolving with this because people, again, there's about a third from just that first transition fund, a third of the activities, maybe at this time it is a little bit more that have been done, but things are ever changing. I just want to be able to be mindful of that too, that you might, if we put some lists out there, there might be something on there and things may change.
Right. No, I appreciate that. And I think, I'll just put it out there. If anybody is working on eBadge Academy, I think one of our challenges is that we did enroll quite a few people, and I know they still have time. There's still plenty of time, but it's progressing slowly. And then I want to be clear about the fact that we can potentially shift those funds to another area, not another area, but in another way, if that's not all utilized for specifically for eBadge, correct?
Yes, you can, but you do need to let us know what you want to shift it to, just so that to make sure that it falls within the parameters of
Right.
the funding. I'm assuming this is for the second phase, so it's more all funds, but still, we just need to keep track and make sure that it falls within the parameters of the Medicaid admin match, which is what we're getting on this funding. Or if it
Right.
was through transition phase one, that it falls within the parameters of what that federal funding allows us to do too.
Okay, thank you.
Another question that came from Karen is when you were mentioning the different activities. So for phase one, you mentioned the 51 activities were completed. In phase two, there was 200 and
218 activities, but those weren't
Yes.
completed. In transformation one, there was, I believe it's 162 activities and 51 had been completed.
do you have Karen was asking, do you have a list of what the activities are? And so I think she's talking more about the completed activities, but does the state have a list of the different activities that are being completed within the different grants?
So we do, but we have all that information in different Excel sheets and things like that. So we'd have to put something together if people wanted information on that. But I'm sure it is something that we can look at doing.
And then Kelly asked, will there be any official bills or legislations that this initiative will correspond with?
At this time, I don't think so. I mean, they fall into our court-ordered action plan. So I don't think there'll be anything outside of that these will fall into. I don't think there's anything else that we would need to do to move this work forward right now.
Well, having worked across other states and individual organizations in other states right now too, I sincerely appreciate both the influx of funding that Rhode Island is providing, but then also I love how you mentioned the data. Continuing to monitor the data, looking at and like reviewing what's working. And Sue with the Cross Disability Coalition, I love that you guys came up with that, because I do think coming from the background of learning diffusion and helping everybody, like that's where those great conversations will go, and you'll be able to really inspire and continue to build upon the excitement and energy and get towards that forward momentum. So I just think that that's really interesting to hear, and I appreciate the state's support in both of that. And Sue, I'm really kind of jealous of your role. That's super cool, super cool. So good luck.
You're on mute, Sue. You're on mute.
Okay, thank you. Anybody that's interested in coming to those meetings, let me know. Shoot me off an email. I'll put my email there. Because they're open meetings. The only thing is I do want people to feel like they can say whatever they want and not have any repercussions of making comments, because some people are really struggling. I mean, obviously one of the theme areas is the workforce recruitment issues. People, even with the great ideas about engagement positions, finding the right person for those positions is hard. The ideas are there, but it can be difficult. And so some people are having more successes than others. So what I don't want the meetings to be, I want people to feel comfortable so that we can brainstorm together on how to transform the system with all of these different ideas and figure out ways that there's collaborations. And by the way, I'm not the one that's coordinating that activity. We've hired Janine Pavlak, who's the director of New England Business Associates, to kind of coordinate this whole piece that we're talking about. So people can talk offline to Janine as well as at the meetings. Okay, Sue Donovan, you're on the list, kid.
Connections, making connections. No, but it is very important work. And so definitely encourage people to get involved in that group, because that's pulling all the stuff together into Sue's point about it being a safe place for people to really truly talk about what's going on without feeling like there'll be any repercussions. And hopefully people aren't feeling that way. I mean, I feel like we've been fairly flexible in how funds could be used, really trying to work on expanding the normal parameters that we have, but still making sure we are being compliant to what we need to be compliant to. But just knowing that there are so many pressures on all of us. We know it's not just the state. The state has their pressures in meeting some of these timelines, these benchmarks, but then that pressure does fall down onto the providers as well, and everybody doing this work to move it along. There are times where we've had to adjust those timelines, and sometimes there's room to adjust some things, but sometimes there's not. We always want people to know that, especially when it comes to these transformation funds, because we're really trying to engage providers, assisting with new ways of thinking about doing business and offering support services to individuals to feel free to ask. And again, update your proposals as you go along. If you're feeling like the road you were going down is not working out in how you envisioned, that happens, and so please don't feel like you can't ask to change things or make adjustments to whatever those proposals were in phase 1 and phase 2.
Just one other quick point on that, Heather. One of the things that we talked about at the last meeting is the importance of having an organized way to communicate the outcomes of these transformation grants. And the timing is really important. I mean, you know better than all of us, with the legislature asking questions, the court asking questions, and the budget will be up for hearings in April. And so we really do need to get out that's a lot of money that you all put out for the community agencies and others. And so we need to be able to be communicating the positive stories and just telling people about whatever those 51 activities are, or 250, who cares what the numbers are, but we need to show changes in people's lives, people thinking differently, just creative stuff that's happening. It's just really, really important that we start to do that, but that we do it in an organized way. And that's the other piece of what we hope to accomplish through our project, or one of the goals in our project.
And we really appreciate that work, because it's very true. I say in many different meetings that I have it's great that we do have all this money infused into our system, but believe me, people will be asking about how it's being used. What are the outcomes? What's happening? It's not just like, and I know everybody knows that. It's not just like, oh, here's some money, but they really are going to be asking what has happened. We speak to the issues that providers are facing, because it's not just the providers here, it's across the board, especially coming out of a public health emergency and everything else that's going on in the past few years. But still, at the end of the day, when people are spending money, they want to know that it's going towards something good. Positive outcomes are coming out of that.
And we have just a few minutes left. And Heather, I know you talked a little bit about the data collection for phase 2, but Maria would like to know just kind of how does the data collection in general happen? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So the first time that we collected data, we actually just sent out a reporting metrics to providers and asked them to list the activities they have, where they started, where they completed, in progress, finished, asked about the funding that was spent towards that activity, and then asked for some impact stories. In thinking about round 2 and wanting to just know a little bit more information, we've kind of revised that a little bit. And I think, as I stated before, we'll have something online that we're going to send out to providers. It will be like a survey link, so they can just go in and put in their information. And again, I think as each time as we get feedback, learn more and think about things differently, we may change some of those questions, things, because we may be looking at ways of like different metrics and what's going on in the system and how we're thinking about how we're using the data. So we may need different types of information from you. But we're working closely with the Sherlock Center. Amy is on here, and she's been extremely helpful to me in trying to think about how we do that.
And
So,
can I just add in that the impact stories are what really help to communicate all the great work that you guys are doing. It's really fun to see them. We're thinking about how we compile them in a way that it shares the really great stuff. I had to throw that in, Heather, because that was Heather's idea, and it's just a fabulous idea because it really brings it to life. Thank you for anybody who's filled that out. We appreciate it.
yes, they are very important. Those are the stories, it's not the data and numbers, always the qualitative versus quantitative data. You need some of both.
And then Heather, just a final question. And Dale is asking the process to request a change and how an agency would like to use their transformation funds. You talked about the ability to do that if, like what you wanted to do is a little bit different or you've identified improvements, but what's that process look like?
So the process is very simple. It's just that you need to email, I think Cindy is the one who's taking them, and then she'll send them to Kevin and I to look at, but really just telling us what you were doing and why you feel like you need to make a shift and what that shift will be. And you need to list if there's a budget, whatever the budget was attached to that specific line item or activity. Let us know that how much of that budget, if that will also be transferring to that, or if you'll be looking to spread some of that funding into some of the other activities. But it's really just sending us updated information on what wasn't working, potentially why, or just that you want to make a shift because you realize, hey, this isn't the direction we want to go anymore, and what that shift is. If that's not helpful, Dale, just call me and we can talk about it.
And Cindy, I think you were right, Heather, because Cindy did put in her email address.
Okay, thanks, Cindy.
And then just in our final minute, again, Heather, thank you so much for getting some time with everybody today to walk through like phase 1, phase 2 data collection and be open to questions and answers. So sincerely appreciate that. I hope everybody got some additional information to support the work that you are doing. I did just want to come back to this collaboration hub for one more moment and note that on March 6th is an upcoming meeting for the coordinating council meeting. So if you have not already accessed that, I put that on your calendar, please do. It's at 2 p.m. on Monday. And then on the 8th, we will be talking about Robert's going to be talking about the DLT workforce initiatives. And so would love to see everybody at 2 p.m. on Wednesday. And then again, as noted, the Applied Self-Direction team is having their annual conference, free, really great content and webinars. If you have not already looked at those, please do. But thank you all again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody.